The galaxy went silent the moment the human walked into the execution arena. Not because he was dangerous. Not because he was armed. But because he was supposed to be dead already. Every alien sensor confirmed it. Every military record agreed. The human species had been wiped out in that sector 3 cycles ago. Yet here he stood alive, smiling and bleeding from a wound that should have killed him instantly. And in front of him, the most feared alien war council slowly realized something terrifying. They had made a mistake keeping him alive. The arena of Carson Prime was built to break civilizations. Massive floating platforms circled a glowing void pit, where prisoners of war were thrown into judgment. Entire species had ended their history here, their last moments broadcast across Imperial space. Today, the prisoner was human. Designation: Elias Venn. Status: classified extinct. Reason for capture: unknown. He stood alone in the center platform, hands bound in energy restraints that burned faint blue against his skin. His clothes were torn. His face was calm. Too calm. Above him, the alien High Tribunal observed from crystalline thrones. Grand Arbiter Zoreth leaned forward, his multi-lensed eyes narrowing. This species was erased, Zoreth said slowly. And yet this one breathes. A younger commander hissed in response. Then, it is a remnant. A mistake. It should be erased properly this time. But something about Elias didn't fit. He wasn't begging. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't even looking at them. Instead, he was studying the arena like he understood it better than they did. And that was the first sign something was wrong. 3 days earlier, Elias Venn was not supposed to be here. He was a deep space salvage operator, flying alone through dead zones where warships went to die. His job was simple: recover tech, avoid conflict, don't ask questions. But then he found the signal. A distress beacon, impossible, ancient, still broadcasting through silent space. Against every survival instinct, he followed it. That decision changed everything. Because the beacon wasn't from a ship. It was from a trap. The capture was instant. A shadow fleet emerged without warning, ships so advanced even his scanners failed to classify them. No warnings. No negotiation. Just a gravity net that ripped his vessel apart mid-flight. Elias remembered impact. Darkness. Then silence. When he woke up, he was already in chains. And the aliens were already discussing his extinction. Back in the present. The arena lights dimmed. Execution protocols activated. A hollow voice echoed across the chamber. Final judgment for organic specimen human. Energy lines beneath Elias began to glow brighter. The platform beneath him slowly tilted toward the void pit. The crowd of alien elites watched eagerly. Some leaned forward. Some recorded. Some simply waited for another primitive species to end. But Elias finally lifted his head and smiled. That single expression changed the temperature of the entire arena. Grand Arbiter Zoreth paused. Why is it smiling? No one answered. Because at that exact moment, Elias spoke for the first time. And what he said was not a plea. It was a question. How long have you been using that execution platform? Silence. A commander frowned. Irrelevant. Elias nodded slowly.
Right.
You don't know. The energy restraints tightened. The platform tilted further. Zoreth raised a hand. Proceed. But Elias interrupted again, voice calm. You built this place wrong. That made them pause. Wrong? No prisoner had ever said that. Elias finally looked up at them directly. And in his eyes was something that made even armored war veterans feel uneasy. Not fear. Understanding. You're using a resonance gravity system, he said. Old design. Pre-collapse era. Efficient but predictable. The council members froze. How does a human know that? Someone whispered. Elias continued, ignoring them. You've been executing species here for how long? Centuries? Millennia? And none of you noticed the structural vibration pattern building up in the core? A faint tremor passed through the arena. Barely noticeable, but real. Zoreth stood abruptly. Stop the sequence. Too late. Elias exhaled. Yeah, he said quietly. That's what I thought. The arena lights flickered once. Then twice. Then the entire execution platform began to hum like something waking up. Alarms erupted across the alien structure. Core instability detected. Gravity feedback loop active. Containment failure in 90 seconds. Panic spread instantly through the tribunal. That's impossible, a commander shouted. A prisoner cannot. Elias cut him off. I didn't do anything, he said simply. Your system did this itself. I just pointed it out. The platform beneath him cracked slightly. Far below, the void pit began to pulse. Like something inside it was responding. Zortha's voice dropped low. What have we been feeding the structure? Elias looked down into the void. And for the first time his calm expression broke slightly. Because whatever was down there was waking up. And it recognized him. The arena did not break like machines usually do. It woke up. A deep vibration rolled through the structure, as if something buried under reality itself had opened one eye. Alarms screamed louder. Alien technicians rushed to control panels, their claws flying across glowing interfaces. Containment field collapsing. Gravity core reversing polarity. Evacuation now. But Grand Arbiter Zorth didn't move. His gaze stayed locked on Elias Venn. Because the human was looking down into the void pit like he knew it personally. And that was impossible. The platform cracked again. A thin line of light spread beneath Elias's feet, like a fracture in space rather than metal. The energy restraints on his wrists flickered violently. Then they shut off. The chains dropped. Every alien in the arena froze. Why did the restraints release? Someone shouted. No answer came. Elias flexed his hands slowly, as if testing something familiar. Then he whispered. So, it's still active. Zorth stepped forward. Explain yourself, human. What is this structure reacting to? Elias didn't look at him. I think you already know, he said quietly. That answer sent unease through the entire council, because it implied ownership, not of the arena, but of the thing beneath it. The void pit erupted with light. Not explosion, not fire. Something older. A massive pulse of gravitational energy surged upward, forming patterns in the air like invisible circuitry. And then, a voice spoke. Not through speakers. Not through comms. Directly into every mind present. Identity match confirmed. The alien tribunal staggered back in shock. Zorth clutched his head. What is this signal? Elias finally looked up. And his expression had changed. Not fear. Recognition. You're still running, he muttered. The voice continued. Welcome back, designation. Human core seed. Silence shattered the arena. A commander screamed. Core seed? What does that mean? But Elias answered instead. Slowly. Like he didn't want to. It means, he said, you've been standing on a human machine for a very long time. The arena shifted violently. Walls of the structure unfolded like mechanical petals revealing hidden layers beneath layers. What looked like an execution platform was actually just the surface. Under it, something vast stretched into darkness. A mega-structure. Ancient beyond alien history. Alive beyond machine logic. And responding only to Elias Venn. Zorth turned sharply. You are lying. Humans do not build structures of this scale. Elias finally met his eyes. That's the problem, he said. We don't build them anymore. The void pulsed again. Images flashed into the air, fragmented data, ancient recordings. Aliens saw flashes of impossible history. Human ships not as vessels but as keys. Human engineers not as workers but as system administrators. Human voices speaking to stars like commands. Then it stopped, and the arena went silent again. A deep mechanical shift echoed below. Something massive began to rise. The entire tribunal staggered as gravity itself bent. The void pit expanded upward, forming a rotating structure of black and silver energy rings. And inside it, something enormous was awakening. Zorth stepped back, voice shaking. This is a weapon system. Elias corrected him immediately. No. He swallowed. It's a containment system. The alien commander blinked. Containment of what? Elias didn't answer right away, because the truth was worse than anything they were prepared for. Finally, he said, of us. The arena exploded into chaos. Some aliens ran. Some fired weapons into the structure. Energy blasts hit the shifting gravity field and vanished like they were swallowed. Nothing worked. The structure ignored them completely. Only Elias remained stable at its center. Like gravity itself preferred him. Zorath growled. Human, stop this immediately. Elias shook his head slowly. I can't. He looked down into the rising megastructure. And I don't think it's asking permission either. Then the second revelation hit. The structure spoke again. But this time, only to Elias. Directive updated. Threat detected. External species classified. Hostile contamination. A pulse surged outward. Every alien in the arena suddenly felt it. A pressure in their minds. Like something evaluating them. Judging them. One by one, systems across the arena began locking down. Doors sealed. Ships above the station lost engine control. Weapons deactivated. Panic exploded. We're being contained, someone shouted. Zorath turned to Elias in fury. End this. But Elias stepped back slowly. And for the first time, he looked uncertain. Because the system wasn't reacting like a trap. It was reacting like a program completing an old command. A command that had been waiting for centuries. And now it had finally found the input it was designed for. Human presence confirmed. The megastructure rose fully into view. A colossal ring-shaped entity floating inside the void, covered in unknown markings that shifted like living code. And at its center, a single platform extended toward Elias. Inviting him. Calling him. Zoratha's voice dropped. Why does it only respond to you? Elias stared at the structure for a long time, then said something no one expected. I think, he whispered, because I'm not the first one here. The arena went silent again. And then, the structure activated its final layer. A massive holographic message appeared across the sky of the chamber. Not alien script. Not translated data. But human language. Old. Fragmented. And terrifying. If you are seeing this, the cycle has failed. Elias closed his eyes. Oh no, he whispered. The message continued. The humans are no longer in control. And at that exact moment, something inside the structure locked onto the alien fleet orbiting above the planet. Targeting systems activated. Weapons charged. Zorath screamed. What is it doing? Elias opened his eyes slowly. And for the first time, there was real fear in his voice. It thinks through the infection. The megastructure began to rise toward orbit. And the galaxy above was about to learn what it meant when humanity left something behind that never stopped watching. The sky of Carson Prime tore open. Not metaphorically. Physically. Above the planet, the alien fleet of Grand Arbiter Zorath hovered in perfect formation. 27 warships, each armed to erase continents in a single coordinated strike. They had come prepared for rebellion. They had not come prepared for judgment. Because the megastructure beneath the arena had risen fully into orbit, and it was now looking at them. Not scanning. Not targeting. Recognizing. Inside the command ship Valkyrian, alarms erupted instantly. Unknown object detected. Classification system failed. Weapon lock override. No authorization found. Captain Virex slammed his claws onto the console. Identify it. A technician stammered. It's not in any Imperial registry. Not even ancient archives. Then another voice, shaking, added. It's responding to us, like we're an intrusion. Silence hit the bridge. Then the ship itself trembled. Because the megastructure had begun to activate. Below, on the planet's surface, Elias Venn stood at the center of collapsing gravity fields, staring upward through the broken arena dome. The alien tribunal was no longer in control. They were trapped inside their own station, locked down by systems that no longer obeyed them. Grand Arbiter Zorath turned to Elias, fury and disbelief mixing in his voice. What is that thing? Elias didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the sky, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. Finally, he said quietly, It's a failsafe. Zorath snapped. A failsafe for what? Elias exhaled. For when humans stopped being the ones in charge. That sentence landed like a collapsing star. The megastructure fired its first pulse. Not a weapon blast. A signal. A wave of structured gravitational codes swept across orbiting ships. Every alien system froze for a fraction of a second. Then chaos followed. Entire weapon arrays shut down mid-charge. Shield networks collapsed and rebuilt incorrectly. Navigation systems began rewriting coordinates on their own. Ships drifted out of formation. And worst of all, their AI systems stopped responding to commands. Captain Byrex shouted, "Why are my weapons offline?" A technician screamed back, "They're not offline. They're being reclassified." Reclassified as what? The screen flickered, and the answer appeared. Hostile non-human presence detected. Engaging human legacy protocol. The bridge went dead silent. On the surface, Elias stumbled slightly as a pulse of pressure hit him. Zorth grabbed him by the collar. "You will stop this immediately." Elias finally reacted, slowly pushing the Arbiter's hand away. "I already told you," he said. "I can't control it." Zorth growled. "Then what controls it?" Elias looked up again, and this time his voice dropped lower. "The last version of us that expected we might disappear." A beat of silence. Then the entire arena structure shook violently as the megastructure aligned itself above the planet's orbit. Something ancient had fully awakened. In orbit, the alien fleet attempted to fire. They failed. Not because weapons were destroyed, but because permission was denied. Every firing system returned the same response. Authority invalid. Fleet Commander Vyrex stared in disbelief. Who has authority over Imperial warships? The answer came instantly. Not from a console, not from AI, but from the megastructure itself. A voice echoed through every channel. Calm, human, and terrifyingly familiar. Authority confirmed. Human origin. Elias froze. "No," he whispered. Zorth looked at him sharply. "What did it say?" Elias stepped back slightly. "That's not possible." The structure responded again. "Priority protocol active. Seed line survivor detected." The alien commander's grip loosened. "Seed line?" Elias looked pale now, because he finally understood what was happening. "This isn't just a weapon," he said quietly. "It's a backup system for humanity." A flash of ancient data surged into the sky. The aliens saw it too. Images burned into the atmosphere. Human cities spanning planets. Human fleets building structures that bent space itself. Human voices giving final commands before extinction-level war. And one repeated instruction. If humanity falls, protect the core. Zorth staggered backward. Protect from what? Elias whispered the answer. Everything else. The megastructure expanded further. Orbit cracked with gravitational distortion. Alien ships began drifting closer to the planet, not by choice but by force. Their engines were no longer fully under control. They were being drawn in. Vyrex screamed, "We are being pulled into the structure." But the structure didn't respond, because it wasn't attacking. It was sorting, filtering, evaluating. On the surface, Elias dropped to one knee as another memory surge hit him. Not his memory. Something older. Embedded. A buried command layer activating through his presence. Zorth backed away slowly. "You're connected to it." Elias looked up sharply. "I don't think I'm connected to it," he said. "I think I'm what's left of the key." A silence fell. Even the megastructure seemed to pause. Then, a new message appeared in the sky. Confirmation required. Humanity status. Elias stood slowly. His voice was quiet. "What happens if I answer wrong?" No one responded, because no one knew. The structure pulsed again. Orbit destabilized further. Alien ships began losing structural integrity as gravitational waves passed through them. And then, a single phrase appeared across every screen. "Declare. Humanity is active or extinct." Zorth stared at Elias. "What does it want from you?" Elias looked torn for the first time, because now he understood the weight of the answer. If he said extinct, the system would erase everything it considered non-compliant. If he said active, it would search for humanity across the galaxy, with no regard for what it destroyed in the process. Either way, something would die. Orbit shook violently. The alien fleet was seconds from collapse. And all eyes, human and alien, turned to Elias Venn, the last human voice standing between survival and total systemic purge. Elias slowly closed his eyes
and spoke.
But what he chose was not what anyone expected. Elias Venn stood in the shattered arena, eyes closed, while an ancient machine older than civilizations waited for his answer. Above him, orbit itself was breaking. Alien warships drifted like broken toys in a storm they couldn't understand. Systems failed without warning. Engines stuttered. Entire fleets were being dragged into gravitational patterns that felt intentional, not destruction, selection. And the megastructure kept asking the same question across every channel in existence. Declare. Humanity is active or extinct. Grand Arbiter Zorth grabbed Elias again, shaking him. Answer it. Zorth shouted. Whatever it wants. Just end this. But Elias didn't move. Because for the first time since his capture, he understood something terrifyingly clear. This wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even a defense system. It was a legacy decision engine. And humanity had built it to make one final judgment when they were gone. Elias whispered, almost to himself. You weren't supposed to wake up. In orbit, Fleet Commander Virex watched helplessly as his ship's hull began to vibrate under gravitational pressure. Report, he barked. A technician screamed back. We're losing structural coherence. It's like space itself is rewriting our mass. Another voice broke in, panicked. It's not attacking us directly. It's evaluating us. Virex froze. Evaluating? Then the screen shifted. A projection appeared across every ship in the fleet. Not targeting data, not weapons locks, but something far worse. A scale, a judgment matrix. And at the top of it, humanity status unknown. Final input required. On the planet below, Elias finally opened his eyes. Zorth stepped back slightly. You understand it, Zorth said slowly. You understand this thing. Elias nodded faintly. I understand the intention, he said. He looked up toward the sky, where the megastructure loomed like a second moon made of impossible geometry. When humans were still expanding, Elias continued, we didn't trust that we'd always survive. Zorth frowned. That is obvious. Every species prepares for survival. Elias shook his head.
No, he said.
We prepared for failure. Silence. Even the alien guards stopped moving. Elias stepped forward slowly. This isn't just a weapon, he said. It's not just a defense system. His voice lowered. It's a last question humanity built for itself in case we couldn't answer it later. Zorth whispered. A question about what? Elias looked up. Whether we deserved to continue existing. A pulse rolled through the megastructure. The arena's remaining walls dissolved into floating fragments as gravity shifted again. And then the structure spoke, not just to Elias anymore, but through him. His voice overlapped with something deeper. Older. Layered. Seed directive active. Elias staggered slightly as the system synced with him. Zorth stepped forward in alarm. What is happening to you? Elias clenched his fists. I think, he said slowly, it's remembering how to talk through a human. The sky split with light. Orbit projections expanded again. The alien fleet saw something new. A recording. A memory embedded in the system itself. Human scientists. Human admirals. Human voices arguing in a long-lost war room. And one final instruction written in emergency protocol. If humanity is unable to respond, use last authorized human node. Fleet Commander Virex whispered. Node? The system answered instantly. Node detected. L1 as Venn. Zorth turned sharply toward Elias. You are the key, he said. Elias shook his head. I'm not a key, he said. I'm just the closest surviving echo. The megastructure responded immediately. Confirmed. Human node partial activation. And then everything changed. The entire alien fleet stopped moving. Not frozen. Not destroyed.
Paused.
As if time itself had been placed on hold. Every ship, every weapon, every system, held in stasis by a single command layer activating across the galaxy. Zorath looked up in horror. What did it do? Elias stared upward, voice barely audible. It stopped the war from continuing, long enough to decide what we are. Then came the second wave. A new projection appeared. Not a threat, not a warning, but a map. A galaxy-wide network of dormant structures, just like the one beneath Carson Prime. Hundreds, maybe thousands. All waiting, all silent, all now awakening one by one. Fleet Commander Vyrex's voice cracked over comms. This is not one system. This is everywhere. The megastructure responded again. Seed network reactivation initiated. Elias whispered in disbelief. There's more of them. Zorath looked at him, shaken. What did your species build? Elias didn't answer immediately, because the truth was heavier than words. Finally, he said, we didn't build them to win wars. He swallowed. We built them to make sure something survived us, even if we didn't agree on what survival meant. The system pulsed again. Final question reappeared, brighter now. Declare. Humanity is active or extinct. But now it was different. Because Elias wasn't just answering for himself anymore. Every dormant structure across the galaxy was listening. Every alien fleet frozen in orbit was waiting. Even Zorath had gone silent. Elias stepped forward alone. And for a moment he looked tired. Not afraid. Just tired of being the last of anything. He whispered, if I say we're active, you'll search. A pause. And if I say we're extinct, you'll erase everything that isn't us. The system did not deny it, because it couldn't. That was the directive. Elias closed his eyes, then said quietly, so maybe the real question is whether we still deserve the choice. Orbit went completely silent. The megastructure paused. For the first time, it did not respond immediately. And in that silence, something else awakened inside it. A deeper protocol, one no one had seen before. And it began to rewrite the question. The silence was heavier than war. Every ship in orbit hung frozen in place. Not destroyed. Not firing. Just waiting. Even Grand Arbiter Zorath didn't move anymore. His entire empire had been reduced to a single unanswered question echoing across space. Declare. Humanity is active or extinct. And Elias then stood alone beneath it. A single human, covered in dust, blood, and history he never asked for. But something had changed now. The megastructure wasn't just asking anymore. It was listening differently. A deep pulse rolled through the system. Not aggression. Not evaluation. Recalibration. The sky above Carson Prime fractured into layers of light, revealing something deeper beneath the question. Elias took a slow step back. No, he whispered, because he recognized that pattern. It wasn't a command anymore. It was a vote system. And humanity had never intended for one voice to decide it alone. The megastructure spoke again. But this time, it was not Elias speaking through it. It was something else awakening fully. Seed network. Global consensus required. Zorath finally broke his silence. What does that mean? Elias swallowed. It means I'm not the final answer, he said quietly. It means I was never supposed to be. Suddenly, the orbit changed. The frozen alien fleet began to shimmer. Not breaking free, but being repositioned. Every warship in the system was gently pulled into orbital alignment around the megastructure, like pieces on a cosmic board. Fleet Commander Vyrex screamed, "We are being arranged." But no weapons fired. No shields activated. Because the system was not preparing for battle. It was preparing for judgment. The megastructure expanded its voice across the galaxy. And now, every dormant structure it had awakened began transmitting. Across hundreds of systems. Across dead civilizations. Across forgotten human ruins. The same question echoed everywhere. Humanity's status required. But now, something else appeared beneath it. A second line. Define humanity. Zoratha's voice cracked. Define humanity? Elias stared upward, stunned. It's not asking if we exist anymore, he said slowly. It's asking what we were. The system opened memory streams. And the galaxy saw it. Not warships. Not weapons. but humans. A child sharing food with an alien prisoner. A human captain refusing to fire on a civilian colony. A dying engineer rerouting a reactor to save a non-human world. A soldier standing between two alien empires just to stop a war he didn't start. Zorath watched in silence. "This is not military data," he whispered. Elias nodded. "No," he said. "It's behavioral imprinting." The megastructure responded. Species pattern analysis complete.
A pause.
Then, undefined variable detected. Mercy. Orbit shook again. But this time it was not collapse. It was transformation. The alien fleet's targeting systems flickered. Then shut down permanently. Virex panicked. "We are defenseless." But Elias shook his head. "No," he said softly. "You're just no longer considered enemies." Zorath turned sharply. "What did you do?" Elias looked at him for a long moment. "I didn't do anything," he said. "Humanity did." He looked up at the structure. "And now it's deciding whether we were a mistake or an unfinished idea." The megastructure emitted its final sequence. Across the galaxy, all seed nodes activated simultaneously. Ancient human constructs awakened. Not weapons, not armies, but observers, judges, memory systems. And they all reached the same conclusion threshold. Then the final message appeared across the sky. Consensus incomplete. Elias closed his eyes. "Of course it is," he whispered, "because humanity was never unified, never perfect, never consistent." The system continued. Humanity is not a single state. Humanity is a process. Zorath stepped back. "A process?" Elias nodded slowly. "That's what we were," he said. "Always changing, always arguing, always choosing again." The megastructure paused. Then something unprecedented happened. It asked a third question. Not to Elias, not to any single system, but to the entire galaxy. Should humanity continue? Silence fell across every system. Alien fleets, ancient ruins, dormant human machines.
Even Zorath could not speak.
Because for the first time, the galaxy itself was being asked to decide humanity's fate. Elias stepped forward slowly and raised his voice, not as a commander, not as a key, but as a survivor. "If you're asking whether we're dangerous," he said, "the answer is yes." A pause. "If you're asking whether we make mistakes," he added, "the answer is constantly." He looked upward. "But if you're asking whether we still try to fix them," his voice softened, "then you already know the answer." The megastructure remained silent for a long time. Then, a shift. Across every system, dormant lights flickered. Not activation, not destruction, reconnection. Zorath whispered, "What is happening?" Elias stared at the sky. "It's not judging anymore," he said. "It's reconnecting us." The final transmission came. Not a command, not a question, but a statement written across the galaxy. Humanity classification. Indeterminate. Status. Active until proven otherwise. The alien fleet slowly powered back on, but not as weapons, as witnesses. Zorath looked at Elias one last time. "What does this mean for us?" Elias gave a tired, faint smile. "It means," he said, "you just became part of the same experiment we never finished." The megastructure dimmed. Not gone. Not sleeping. Just waiting again. But now the galaxy was different. Because it had learned something terrifying and beautiful. Humanity was not a species that ended. It was a question that never stopped being answered. Elias then turned away from the sky and walked forward. Not as the last human, but as the first signal that humanity was still being written. Behind him, Zorath finally whispered, "Never underestimate humans." Elias didn't look back. "Yeah," he said softly. "We tend to surprise ourselves too."